Reincarnation of the Strongest Sword God. Chapter 21 Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Being said in such a way by wordless Summer, Lonely Snow did not give any rebuttals. He only lowered his head and left, chasing after Shifeng. Waving slowly squinted his eyes. When he thought about Shifeng equipped in a body of trash equipment, he could not understand what methods Shifeng had used to cause Lonely Snow to follow him. Lonely Snow had even given up on the clearing Deathly Forest. Boss, let's ignore that foolish Lonely Snow. At worst, we'll start looking for people again. There are plenty of level 2 players now, battle to the end, said in disdain as he watched Lonely Snow. Waving slowly nodded his head. Lonely Snow's leaving did not cause any loss to their party. As for Shifeng creating a party to dive into the Deathly Forest, not to mention clearing the dungeon, nobody would go in with a level 1 player. In front of the Deathly Forest's entrance, Shifeng and Blackie continuously shouted to recruit people. Open party for Deathly Forest, no rigid requirements, okay as long as you're a veteran gamer, 2 waiting for 4. Shifeng shouted. When everyone heard of it, many level 2 players had run over. It was because Shifeng's requirements were very low. Many small parties would choose people based on equipment quality, they needed a few pieces of common equipment to pass. However, who would have that many pieces of common equipment in the early periods of the game? Party me, party me. I'm already a level 2 cleric. Party me. I'm a level 2 shield warrior. I also have a piece of level 1 common plate armor armguard. In just a moment, Shifeng had invited 4 people. These 4 people were quite happy originally. There were over 10 people currently present, but only they were chosen. However, after they saw the party leader, Shifeng's level, they left the party in rage one after another. Fuck, it's just a noob coming to die in the Deathly Forest at level 1. If you want to enter the dungeon, enter it by yourself. I won't accompany you. No wonder there are no requirements for the party. Want us to give you a ride? Not a chance. The 4 people were extremely enraged, and the voices they made were practically roars. Every player at the Deathly Forest could hear it. Hee, even a level 1 player dares boast about entering the Deathly Forest. He just wants to tag along for experience and equipment. Lucky for me I didn't go over. There are all sorts of birds in a large forest. Who would be foolish enough to enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob? Isn't that just looking to be abused? One after another, the level 2 players laughed at Shifeng for overestimating himself and for his foolishness. Get lost if you don't wish to party up. We're not begging you all to come. Blackie became enraged after listening to them. Shifeng's techniques had long since convinced him, yet these people were calling Shifeng a noob. Can a noob kill a level 2 rare elite when he was level 2? Can a noob kill a level 5 chieftain when he was level 0? These people were just a group of snobs and idiots. Crap, my knowledge has been widened. A level 1 noob party can be awesome. I really want to see how you two gather a full party. The cleric that just left the party said with a cold smile. At this moment, Lonely Snow ran over. When he saw Shifeng, he hurriedly said, Brother Expert, give me an invite. I want to enter the Deathly Forest together with you guys. I have 2 pieces of common plate armor equipment on me, defenses 24. Alright, Shifeng immediately sent an invitation. Blackie never imagined that Lonely Snow would actually leave his original party and come to them. He suddenly had a good impression of Lonely Snow. Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, heartily laughing, you have good eyes. Don't worry, following Brother Feng definitely won't be a mistake. Nonsense, nonsense. Lonely Snow was still slightly worried within his heart. The grinding spot Shifeng had simply pointed him to had allowed him to rise to level 2 quickly. However, Shifeng himself hadn't even reached level 2, and he was still wearing very poor equipment. Lonely Snow just couldn't understand how it could be so. The spectating players by the side all became dumbfounded. There was actually someone who would enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob. This person had good equipment, at that. The brand new plate armor and boots on Lonely Snow must definitely be common equipment and not trash equipment. Although Lonely Snow had joined the party, not a single player had joined them after Shifeng had recruited for over 10 minutes. With just 3 of them alone, it was impossible to enter and clear the dungeon. At this moment, waving slowly but surely brought a group of people. Hee, Brother Expert, still hasn't partied anybody. We've already invited another 3 strong members. All of them have at least 2 or 3 pieces of level 1 common equipment. The cleric, Endless Summer Night, said to Shifeng in ridicule. Waving slowly only sent a glance towards Shifeng, then moved his sight towards Lonely Snow, saying, you won't have a future if you follow him around. Before we enter the dungeon, you could still consider it over properly. I guarantee that you definitely won't suffer a loss. Afterward, Waving slowly shifted his gaze towards Blackie. Previously, all his attention had been on Shifeng, having ignored Blackie. Now that he took a closer look, Blackie's clothing looked brand new. Blackie was even holding a blackwood staff. His equipment should be quite good, and he was also level 2, so his techniques should be good as well. You're not bad as well. Why don't you join our party? You should know that we are an elite party. It's not something average players could compare to. If we're together, leveling, grinding, and dungeon diving will be easy. Waving slowly looked at Blackie with a smile. Get lost. Trying to poach me over just based on your little party. Blackie scolded as he pointed his blackwood staff at Waving slowly. At the same time, he had selected to display the halo effect of the bronze equipment, saying, it's just 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment. I have 3 bronze equipment and 2 common equipment. Waving slowly and the others were shocked. They never thought Blackie was that powerful. He actually possessed 3 pieces of bronze equipment. During this period of time, a person having 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment was considered an expert. As for having a piece of bronze equipment, that person would definitely be an expert, every guild would fight over for that person. However, the Blackie before them actually had 3 pieces of bronze equipment. Waving slowly's party also became surprised. When they saw the halo effect of the bronze equipment, their eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. No wonder Shifeng behaved that boldly. Shifeng had nothing to fear because he had grabbed an expert's favor. Meanwhile, Lonely Snow who stood beside Blackie was slack-jawed. He looked at Blackie in disbelief. Lonely Snow had originally thought of Shifeng as a rarely seen expert. He had never imagined that Blackie was the true great expert. Fellow brother, if you party up with such a noob and enter the dungeon, it would also be a burden on you. Not to mention failing to clear the dungeon, you might even have to die once. How about you come with us? All pieces of mage equipment from the dungeon are free for you to choose from. Although Waving slowly was enraged for being given such a slap, if he could rope over Blackie, then the chances for clearing the dungeon would become a lot greater. I agree with your views. Joining a group of noobs such as yourselves really will be a burden to me, Blackie chuckled. You. Waving slowly's face turned beet red, furiously saying, then let's see who clears the deathly forest first. Finishing his piece, Waving slowly spun around and left. He did not believe that a party with a noob in it could clear the deathly forest. Humph, he's just a powerful damage dealer entering the dungeon. Does he really think he could clear it? Wordless Summer jealously murmured. Right, we are all veteran gamers. We are definitely stronger in dungeon diving than they are. The shield warrior curled his lips. After Waving slowly's party left, the number of people applying for Shifeng's party had also suddenly increased. Such an effect was mainly caused by the equipment that Blackie wore. At this period, bronze equipment was definitely the proof of an expert. Even if there was a noob as the party leader, an expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment could be considered as strong as 2 people. The advantage of having such an expert was definitely greater than an average party. However, Shifeng was no longer inviting people at random this time, there was a definite requirement. Such an action had caused the 4 players who had left Shifeng's party previously to regret immensely. How could they have acted on impulse? Now, Shifeng wouldn't give them a chance even if they wished to join. Just as Shifeng was fervently recruiting party members. At the southwest part of the Deathly Forest dungeon's entrance, a great disturbance suddenly appeared. Many players had run over, one after another, every one of them having excited expressions. It can't be. Meeting in such a place. Blackie's 2 eyes stared straight ahead. Shifeng was also shocked. They could even meet such an important figure in a small location like Red Leaf Town. It was just unimaginable. Could it be that Red Leaf Town was a place that had crouching tigers and hidden dragons, only, Shifeng had never discovered it before. Chapter 22 Recruitment Storm. As more players started going there, Shifeng's area turned leisurely. Brother Feng, I'm not seeing things, right? Or am I dreaming right now? Blackie rubbed his eyes as he asked with uncertainty. Shifeng was speechless. With a bitter smile, he looked towards the 3-man party that caused this disturbance. The newcomer was not just anybody, she was Blackie's idol, Goddess Gentle Snow. Gentle Snow's body was covered in a suit of gorgeous silver-colored plate armor, revealing her fine and curvaceous body. Adding to her angelic beauty and snow-cold temperament, even women's hearts would be moved by her, as well as a large group of men. Even Shifeng couldn't help but admit that Gentle Snow was the most perfect woman he had seen before, be it regarding appearances, body, or temperament. There was not a single female celebrity who could match up to her. As for the 2 people on each side of Gentle Snow, Shifeng was very familiar with them as well. He had seen them before on big news channels. They were all famous experts in God's domain. One of them was also an absolute beauty named Zhao Yueru. If Gentle Snow could be said to possess a perfect body and appearance, then Zhao Yueru possessed a devilishly enticing body and appearance. Every one of her movements was like a temptation that could influence a person's heart. Adding on the fiery red robe that she wore, her body radiated a wild-like charm. Such bewildering charms had caused many men wanting to go over and assault her. If you really did such a thing, however, then congratulations. You've just earned a one-way ticket directly to hell. This was because words such as, big breasts, no brains and, as delicate as a flower, were not applicable to Zhao Yueru. In God's domain, she had another nickname of the Flame Witch. The reason why she held this title was that of the mountain of corpses she had piled up using these male players. There had once been a guild leader of a large guild that had tried assaulting Zhao Yueru. As a result, the guild that had over 100,000 players became no more. Zhao Yueru even hunted their guild leader. The incident only came to an end when that guild leader was killed back to level 0. From then on, the title of Flame Witch had been cast on Zhao Yueru. Compared to the Snow Goddess and Flame Witch, the priestess by their side could only be considered normal. She was not overly beautiful, her techniques were not bad, and she was also within the top 100 rankings of Star Moon Kingdom's priest leaderboard. 2 absolute beauties plus a great beauty, such a combination had created brilliant scenery in the Deathly Forest. Hundreds of players surrounded them, trying to become acquainted with the 3 women. Unfortunately, the 3 beauties did not even look at them. Sister Yueru, these people are really scary. How about we return and level up? The timid Xiao Yuei whispered. Hee, Yuei, don't be afraid. With gentle Snow here, even if you give these hateful, vulgar men 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare come over here, Zhao Yueru said with a smile, proudly sticking out her chest. Gentle Snow only nodded her head in reply. Regarding these salivating, vulgar men, she did not even place them in her eyes. Although the drops from elite monsters are not bad, the drop rate for skill books is higher at the Deathly Forest. If we don't grind for a few more skill books, we will level up very slowly in the future, Gentle Snow quietly said. Zhao Yueru nodded her head in agreement. Although the three of them had killed quite many elite monsters, the number of skill books that dropped was very little. Until now, the three of them had yet to learn even 3 skills. It was really affecting their strength utilization and grinding efficiency. Effective party for Deathly Forest, looking for a healer in MT3 waiting for 3. After taking a few looks, Shifeng continued shouting. Although Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru were indeed attractive, Shifeng was no longer a child. He had seen plenty of beauties, especially after he became Shadow's captain. Many beauties would willingly throw themselves at Shifeng. As for Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru, it was good enough to just look at them for pleasure. Such beauties were not something Shifeng could have thoughts about. His main goal right now was to get down to business. However, Shifeng's shouting did not yield any replies. Not a single player had even glanced at him. All of them were staring and salivating at Gentle Snow's group of 3. Even Blackie was no exception, his eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets from staring. Shifeng sighed, helplessly shaking his head and continued shouting and recruiting people. Crap, what is this fool blabbering about? Do you really think anybody would commit suicide together with you in the dungeon? Quickly scram, you level 1 noob. Stop distracting me from looking at beauties. Quite a few players started to express their discontentment. 2 high-quality beauties had already shown up, yet instead of trying to get closer to them, Shifeng was actually making noise here. What would you do if those beauties were scared off? That person is interesting. He can actually attract the hostility of so many people. Did he do something immoral before? Xiao Yuei revealed a crescent moon-like smile, giggling as she pointed at Shifeng. Zhao Yueru aimed her eyes over as well. She felt nothing special from Shifeng. He was even dressed in tattered clothing. Zhao Yueru felt that Shifeng was just trying to seek attention from the crowd. She suddenly said in disdain, he is definitely doing so to grab our attention. Let's not bother with him and quickly party up 3 people to dive the dungeon. Regarding the number of men who had tried to attract their attention, there were just too many of them. Zhao Yueru had seen all kinds of methods these men had used before, and Shifeng's method was not a rare sight at all, but instead outdated. Gentle Snow did not voice out any opinions, only taking a look at Shifeng. She felt an odd feeling coming from Shifeng. This was the spirit of a hidden sword. Gentle Snow was especially concerned about the fire poker hanging around Shifeng's waist. Gentle Snow, what happened to you? Zhao Yueru curiously looked at Gentle Snow. She did not understand why Gentle Snow would keep staring at the extremely ordinary Shifeng. It's nothing. Maybe it's just my imagination. We should hurry up and recruit some people to dive the dungeon. Gentle Snow shook her head, no longer looking at the fire poker at Shifeng's waist. Originally, Shifeng's party already had trouble recruiting for people. However, because of Zhao Yueru's single sentence, nobody else had paid attention to Shifeng's party, even if his party had an expert present. Shifeng expressed his helplessness when seeing the hundreds of players queuing up in front of Zhao Yueru. The 3 women's arrival had really bad timing. Brother Feng, why don't we go over there as well? Blackie shamelessly suggested. Scram, what do you take me for? Shifeng rolled his eyes at Blackie. This fellow was just too shameless, forgetting friendship after finding love. Instead, Lonely Snow was the better one. He was a truly honest man. In the beginning, Lonely Snow had only taken a few glances but stopped after giving out a few praises. He had even helped Shifeng in recruiting people by his side. Blackie did not dare to speak again after being scolded by Shifeng. He could only silently look on in envy at those players in the queue. Over 10 minutes later, Shifeng still had not recruited a single person. Similarly, Gentle Snow's party had also not recruited a single person. However, in Shifeng's case, it was because nobody had come to join his party. Whereas for Gentle Snow's party, it was because the players that wanted to join did not match up to their specifications. One party was in heaven, while the other was on earth. Shifeng had no more choices. He could not just continue dragging on in such a way, his time was precious. He could only make exceptions in recruiting. Efficient party for Deathly Forest, we have an expert leading the party, clear in 1 try, no limit to levels, looking for healers and damage dealers, 3 waiting for 3. However, Shifeng's words had caused many players to send over looks of disdain. Even if you were trying to attract attention, you should have a lower line. Currently, there had already been tens of level 2 players who had died out of the dungeon. Every one of them had said the Deathly Forest was impossible to clear. On the other hand, Shifeng said his party had no level limits. Then wasn't he trying to say that he only needed 1 person to clear the Deathly Forest? Was this possible? However, Shifeng's lower line had still attracted some players' attention. Within a few moments, a group of level 1 players had come running over to join. Chapter 23 Tyrant Bear. Tens of level 1 players came running over. The area in front of Shifeng's party had also started becoming lively. This person is really something. He is so desperate to enter the dungeon that he would even want level 1 noobs. Did he not know that there has already been a level 2 elite party that had returned after dying? Who cares about him? A noob is a noob after all. We won't be able to understand their thoughts. The long queue of level 2 players started laughing one after another at Shifeng's actions. They all wanted to watch Shifeng become a joke. Those guys are really interesting. Even I don't have much confidence in clearing the Deathly Forest, yet they actually want to clear it with a group of level 1 players. Zhao Yueru's lips curled up slightly, revealing an exuberant smile as she looked in Shifeng's direction. Her voice carried a hint of ridicule and disdain. Gentle Snow also sent a glance towards Shifeng from a distance. Shifeng's temperament was both calm and confident. He did not become angry from being laughed at. Every one of his movements was very mature, not much different from the experts in God's domain she had seen before. However, she did not understand from where Shifeng's confidence came. Deathly Forest was Red Leaf Town's first dungeon, and it was also everyone's first time being in touch with a dungeon in God's domain. Their difficulties were an unknown. Even the elite parties of guilds would carefully choose their members before entering the dungeon. On the other hand, Shifeng did not care in the slightest, as if just gathering 6 players was good enough. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. He's just a level 1 player, so how could he clear the Deathly Forest? Gentle Snow caressed her elegant hair, her heart no longer thinking about Shifeng's odd actions. She looked at her hand, at the player information displayed on it, level 2 summoner, magic attack 28, HP 150, defense 8, movement speed 4. Fail. Next. Afterward, another cursemancer stepped forward. The person tensely sent his own attributes to the snow goddess, Gentle Snow. On the other side, Shifeng as well was looking at player data. Although he did not have a lower line, he did have a bottom line. The equipment and levels of these level 1 players were much worse than the level 2 players that Gentle Snow's party were recruiting. However, they were still players. As long as they did not simply add their 8 free attribute points early on, the chance of clearing the Deathly Forest with a 6-man party was very high. As for those shield warriors and guardian knights who solely added strength or weapons job but did not add agility, all of them were rejected. Big brother, please party me. Although I am just a level 1 guardian knight, I have a piece of level 0 common equipment. Also, all 8 of my attribute points are still available. I can completely add them based on your requirements. A youth named Kola pleaded, his eyes filled with expectations. Shifeng was slightly surprised. A guardian knight that did not add any attribute points could actually reach level 1. It was a masterpiece. It had to be known that guardian knights had very low attack, making the killing of monsters difficult. Normally, they would party up to kill monsters. To increase grinding efficiency, they would add a few points of strength. Otherwise, leveling up would be too slow. Guardian Knight Kola. Kola. When Shifeng looked at Kola's face, and also his tall and muscular body, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Suddenly, he entered into deep thought. His memory seemed to have such a person in it. That's right. It's Tyrant Bear. Shifeng managed to remember it. Tyrant Bear's name was Kola. Tyrant Bear was the core MT of the first-rate guild, Brilliant Stars. During the early periods of God's domain, Tyrant Bear was constantly unsuccessful. He was even kicked out by third-rate guild, Heaven's Crown. After entering Brilliant Stars, Kola suddenly started to shine. He turned from being a normal party's MT into the core elite party's MT in the guild. He was ranked 15th on the Guardian Knight leaderboard of Star Moon Kingdom. Kola was known for both being able to attack and defend. Shifeng had never thought that the Tyrant Bear would run up to him on his own. Kola was such a shy person, as well. It was totally different from the Tyrant Bear of 10 years later. Suddenly, Shifeng had an idea. Currently, the Tyrant Bear had yet to join Heaven's Crown, not to mention Brilliant Stars. If Shifeng could poach Kola over and turn Kola into his own mount, then wouldn't dungeon diving in the future be a lot easier? Big brother, I guarantee that I will absolutely listen to your commands when inside the dungeon. Please consider it over. Kola's tone carried hints of begging. Shifeng had nearly let loose a laugh. The great Tyrant Bear would actually speak in such whispered tones just for a position in the dungeon. However, Shifeng still held it in. The level 1 players that had come here all held hopes of getting lucky. The other parties that entered the Deathly Forest with level 2 players were already no good, not to mention level 1 players like them. If they could enter once into the Deathly Forest and fortunately obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, then it would be a great help to their future development. At that time, entering into a large guild would become much easier. Alright, I can add you in. Shifeng's face turned grave as he said, however, you should know that bringing a level 1 noob like you into the Deathly Forest isn't easy. I can't just carry you through the Deathly Forest, and then after you get equipment, you join some other elite parties. Wouldn't I just be striving for nothing? When Shifeng finished his speech, quite a few level 1 players had suddenly sent over looks of disdain. Weren't you also a level 1 noob? However, Shifeng did not care about what these people felt. He continued saying, I wish to form a stable party. Even if we need members, it would be with stability as the priority. If you wish to enter the dungeon, you need to be prepared for the long term. When I call you for dungeon diving, you must come. You cannot reject because you have some other matters. So, what will be your choice? When the other players heard Shifeng saying so, they suddenly turned quiet. Shifeng's intentions were very clear. If you wish to enter the party, then you won't be able to join other parties in the future, not to mention joining a guild. Everybody knew that entering a guild was the best method to increase your own strength quickly. Currently, they did not have the qualifications to join any of those guilds. So, they were here to try their luck, hoping to obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment. They might even be able to join those guilds afterward. So, how would they be able to give up their chances of entering a good guild just to enter a dungeon? Cola had also never imagined that Shifeng would give such a demand. However, it was still reasonable. You couldn't just expect other people to bring you up, then leave when you become strong. However, Shifeng lacked the persuasiveness when he said these words. At this moment, Blackie stood out and furiously said, "Just looking at you noobs, there is nobody that would want you down in the dungeon. And you still wish to join a guild in the future and enjoy their benefits. Are you thinking yourselves as experts, or are you taking us for idiots?" Cola thought what Blackie, the expert, had said made sense. Even a level 2 expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment was in this party, whereas Cola himself was just a novice noob. So, what right did he have to complain? Many thanks for Big Brother expert's pointers. Little brother will definitely strive to fulfill his own role. Cola continuously thanked Blackie. Blackie felt somewhat uneasy from being thanked and referred to as an expert by Cola. Blackie was just a complete imposter of an expert. However, being called such by someone made Blackie want to become an expert in God's domain even more. Blackie, beautifully done. Shifeng stretched out a thumbs up, quietly praising Blackie. Shifeng never imagined Blackie would tame the tyrant bear just like that. The tyrant bear had also called Blackie a big brother with a face full of respect. Blackie suddenly became confused. He did not understand what he had done that was worth being praised by Shifeng. However, he was still very happy. At least he had done something for Shifeng, although he didn't know what he had done exactly. Over 10 minutes later, Shifeng finally gathered 6 players. They could start dungeon diving now. Chapter 24 Hell's Roar. Although Shifeng's party was gathered, the observing level 2 players had started laughing. They were not laughing because all the players Shifeng had invited were level 1. Instead, the jobs that were in the party were just too exotic. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. This noob really is something, and even I am starting to admire him. They're simply a suicide party. I really pity that expert for actually bringing along such an exotic player. The expert had even agreed to let him be the party's leader. The queued up level 2 players started a debate, and there were quite a few players who were holding their stomachs while laughing loudly. He is just playing to the gallery. Zhao Yueru wrinkled her brows slightly. She turned her head away after taking a look at Shifeng, her heart slightly discomforted. Before, she would be the focus of everyone wherever she went. Today, however, everyone's attention was on an inconspicuous noob like Shifeng. Although everyone was jeering at him, he was still their focal point. Alright Yueru, we should hurry and gather enough people. If we waste any more time, we will be left behind by the frontline players. Although Gentle Snow felt that Shifeng seemed to be an expert, regarding levels, methods of recruiting people and such, he was just too far from being referred to as an expert. As for the notion of inviting Shifeng into their guild, it was no longer present now. Their Ouroboros only accepted experts. Got it. Zhao Yueru turned towards the swordsman in front of her. With a little vengeance, she directly said, "Date is not bad, but too bad we don't want a swordsman." The swordsman suddenly became spiritless. How could he not see what Zhao Yueru meant? Subsequently, he turned his head and glared at the distant Shifeng, his eyes filled with hatred. Meanwhile, Shifeng, who knew nothing about what has happened, was currently activating the Deathly Forest. System. Please select activation difficulty. System. Normal, hard, hell. Shifeng chose hell without hesitation. Suddenly, the transfer passage in front of the Deathly Forest changed. It changed from a silvery gray color to pitch black. At the same time, a flickering skull that had its mouth wide open could vaguely be seen. Meanwhile, the party members of Shifeng's party all received a notification. System. You have chosen Hell mode of Deathly Forest. Death penalty increased by 100%. Suddenly, the faces of the members of the party turned deathly white. Death penalty increased by 100%. Doesn't that mean if they died within the dungeon, they would lose 20% of their express? 1 or 2 hours of effort were required to make up for that express. Brother Feng, you chose the wrong one. Aren't we going down the normal dungeon? Blackie hurriedly walked over and whispered a reminder. Nothing's wrong. It's Hell mode. What would I be doing here if it isn't to dive Hell mode? Shifeng snapped. The drop rate for forging designs was extremely low. If it was normal mode, then Werewolf Felt's drop rate was only 1%, hard mode had 5% and Hell mode had 30%. Although normal mode could be cleared without limit every day, who would have so much time to do so? Meanwhile, hard mode could only be cleared 5 times a day, and the probability of the forging design to drop was also not great. As for Hell mode, it could only be cleared once a day, but it was also the one that had the most hopes of dropping it. Feng, brother Feng, what are you saying? Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Just look at our party. It is problematic to even clear normal mode, not to mention Hell mode. Blackie panicked. Before, he had already seen several elite parties that had returned after dying. According to what these people had said, the monsters in the Deathly Forest were extremely strong. Their intelligence was extremely high as well. It was impossible to beat them without reaching level 4 or 5, so they had all left after giving up. If they dove into a hell mode dungeon now, with noobs like them, that would truly be going down into hell. Relax. If I weren't certain, even I wouldn't do it. Shifeng clapped Blackie's shoulders, saying confidently with a smile. Alright, let's go inside then. Shifeng led the party by entering first, followed by Blackie. Lonely Snow had also entered with a dazed head. He was prepared to tread this path to the very end. As for the remaining three, they hesitated for quite some time. We better go in. The expert has already gone inside, so what do we, level 1 noobs, still have to be reluctant for? Moreover, we're entering the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Even mentioning it would be a glory, Cola encouraged. The other two felt that it made sense and had also followed into the dungeon. Meanwhile, the area in front of Gentle Snow's party was completely silent. All of the level 2 players were stunned. They were not just shocked, but thunderstruck. A level 2 elite party couldn't even clear the normal mode, yet a party that mainly consisted of level 1 players had actually chosen the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Snow, did I see wrong? That's hell mode, right? Zhao Yueru asked. Gentle Snow nodded her head. Her beautiful eyes kept staring at the flickering skull. Her expression turned extremely serious. That fellow must have abandoned himself to despair, entering hell mode after determining that he couldn't clear the normal mode. We'll see how they come out dead in a moment. Zhao Yueru laughed. We don't have that sort of time. Let's go, we've gathered enough people. Gentle Snow led the way towards the Deathly Forest dungeon. She selected normal mode for the difficulty of the dungeon. If there were no problems with normal mode, they would enter hard mode after. Within the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, there was a dark and gloomy forest. From time to time, there would be a chill wind blowing, causing a shiver down one's body. Aside from Shifeng himself, every member of his party was tightly packed around the dungeon's entrance. They did not move even an inch for fear of attracting any monsters that would wipe their party. Brother Feng, why do I keep feeling a cold wind blowing by my back? Blackie asked in worry. Blackie, you need to bring out some temperament of an expert, only then will you have the possibility to become one. It is just hell mode. Aside from the monsters here having a little bit intelligence, their battle methods being a little bit complicated, and their attack, defense, and HP are a little bit higher, there isn't much else. Oh right, there is also a little bit more monsters here. After some thought, Shifeng felt that he had nothing more to add. Suddenly, every member of the party sent looks of disdain towards Shifeng. When diving a dungeon, even a small difference in attack and HP could cause a team wipe. As for Shifeng, he had just simply explained. Moreover, what did he mean by, just a little more intelligence? They had experienced before the battles with monsters in God's domain. Regarding those monsters with slightly higher intelligence, even with the same attack and HP, their strength would still be increased by 1 or 2 folds. Alright, stop minding these little matters. I'll be explaining the strategy for this dungeon in a moment, so you guys better listen carefully. If you don't follow through, then your lives will become forfeit. Shifeng waved his hands, ready to start explaining the strategy to conquer the dungeon. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from the dark and gloomy forest, causing the trees to sway madly. Ow, ow, ow. After the howling wind came a furious roar that resounded throughout the entire Deathly Forest. Countless birds were scared, flying off into the sky. Blackie and the others were stunned by such an imposing aura. They were just youths around the age of 20. They had never experienced any great hardships, not to mention being tempered through life or death situations. It was their first time facing such a lung-piercing roar. Compared to hearing the traditional roar of a tiger in the forest, this roar was much more shocking to the human heart. This thing is what we should pay attention to, Shifeng calmly said at this moment. The largest difference between hell mode and hard mode was this roar. Although it did not have a specific name to it, the players in Shifeng's previous life had dubbed it as Hell's Roar. Chapter 25 Night Ranger. Shifeng's words confused the other members. Wasn't it just a roar? What was there to pay attention to? When Shifeng looked at everyone's contemptuous expressions, he couldn't help but gravely say, listen well you all. Hell's Roar is not as simple as what you think it is. In a moment, follow my demands while advancing. If anyone makes a mistake, don't blame me for immediately kicking you out of the party. Being lectured by Shifeng in such a way, the other members all became serious. Nobody wished to leave the party. In a moment, Cola and I will walk in front. Lonely Snow, you walk in the middle and protect the oracle. Blackie, you and the summoner will walk at the back. Remember, you must not break formation regardless of any activities. Without my command, nobody is allowed to be the first to attack, do you all understand? Shifeng explained the basics of formations once to the party. The reason Shifeng had allowed the Guardian Knight, Cola, to walk in front was that he let Cola add all of his free ability points into endurance. His HP now reached 310 points. With this much HP, Cola could resist a little longer, sharing some of Shifeng's burden. The dungeons in God's domain were unlike the dungeons in other virtual reality games. The degree of freedom within the dungeon was high, and the dungeons, themselves, were very large. There were even quite a few player parties who had wandered around in the dungeon for hours without even meeting a single boss. Although the Deathly Forest was not as large, it was still possible to become lost within the dark and gloomy forest. If someone were to become lost, Shifeng only wished to say, hee hee. The scary part of the Deathly Forest was that players could become lost once they entered the forest. Eventually, the players would mysteriously die one after another. In Shifeng's previous life, there were countless players who had entered the forest and died over and over again in such a way without even meeting the shadow of a monster. If they had good luck and met a monster, then the result was a party wipe. Only after many experts of guilds had done it, did everyone finally understand the dreadfulness of the deathly forest. They had acknowledged that it was a terrifying dungeon that was impossible to clear without reaching level 5. When Shadow Guild reached level 5, they had organized hundreds of players to scout out the paths in the deathly forest. They had paid over hundreds of lives to finally have a clear understanding of the deathly forest's map. The entire deathly forest had 36 paths. However, only 3 of them led to the first boss, Willy. These 3 paths were paved with the lives of many players. 2 of these 3 paths were extremely dangerous. Without sufficient strength, death would be the only result. There was only one path that had very few monsters. Under Shifeng's lead, everyone walked into the forest. The moment they entered the forest, everyone discovered that there were too many pathways through the forest. They did not know which one was the right path. However, Shifeng had chosen one without hesitation. Everyone else closely followed him while being cautious of their surroundings. After walking for about 5 minutes, they met their first monster. Suddenly, everybody started to become tense. Don't act on impulse. Listen to my commands, Shifeng loudly shouted. In front of them was only a level 2 elite monster, a night rabbit. However, due to the dungeon strengthening, its attack, defense, and HP were all greatly increased. Its HP was a whopping 700 points. Cola, you lure the monster over. Oracle, pay attention to healing. Everyone else, don't start the attack without my command, Shifeng quickly gave out orders. The Guardian Knight, Cola gulped down a mouthful of saliva. He carefully walked towards the night rabbit's attack range. Everyone else was nervous to the extreme. Although this was only a level 2 elite, they were currently in the hell mode of a dungeon. However, everyone's nervousness was for naught. The moment the night rabbit with a person's height saw Cola, it immediately dashed over. Cola had very successfully lured the night rabbit over. Moreover, he did not panic when he lured it. He retreated while using his shield to block the night rabbit's attacks. However, even though every attack landed on the shield, the damage was still terrifying. Just a single hit dealt 42 damage. By the time Cola returned to the front of the party, his HP had already dropped by a third. The Oracle, whose name was Drowsy Sloth, had good awareness. He had given out healing the moment Cola entered his casting range. However, every heal could only add 24 HP to Cola. It was completely not enough to stop Cola's HP from falling. Brother Feng, are we still not attacking? Blackie was slightly nervous. At this moment, Cola's remaining HP did not even reach 1/3 of its total. Bringing an Oracle into a dungeon was just a complete mistake. Amongst the healer jobs, Oracles had the weakest healing abilities. However, since Shifeng had chosen so, Blackie could only acknowledge it. Now that their MT was close to death, it would be unacceptable if they still did not attack. Hold on, Shifeng resolutely said. Time passed bit by bit. Cola continuously used his shield to block the claw attacks of the night rabbit, whereas his HP continuously decreased. Cola only had 20% HP remaining, yet Shifeng had yet to give out the command to attack. Just when everyone thought that Shifeng wanted to give up on Cola, a flying arrow pierced through the forest, shooting directly for the party's Oracle, Drowsy Sloth. Lonely Snow had not reacted at all as Drowsy Sloth was struck directly on his chest. A very great damage of -123 points appeared. At this moment, Shifeng shouted, Sloth, use life payment. Use the damage you received to heal Cola. Blackie, hold back the night rabbit to let Cola recover. Lonely, come with me. Everyone else attacks the night rabbit. Oracles were indeed the weakest regarding healing. However, Oracles had high HP, they would not be easily one-shotted. Also, Oracles had 2 skills when they first start out. One was Life Prayer, while the other was Life Payment. Life Payment could turn the damage received by the user into a heal to be used on other players. In the early periods of the game, healers did not possess many skills or equipment. In regards to such a situation, Oracles had a greater advantage over other healers when entering the Deathly Forest. It was the reason why Shifeng had given up on choosing a priest over an Oracle. After finishing his piece, Shifeng rushed into the forest. Do you think I will let you run away? Shifeng coldly said as he looked at the dark shadow running through the forest. Wind Blade. Shifeng turned into a phantom, chasing directly forward. The reason why Shifeng did not let anyone attack the night rabbit was to use Cola as bait. Shifeng wanted to lure out the dark hand hiding behind the scenes. Although the night rabbit looked terrifying, an elite party could face up to 2 or 3 of them at once without any problems. However, in Shifeng's previous life, the reason why even a level 5 elite party could be party wiped was that of the dark shadow in front of Shifeng. This dark shadow used the night rabbit as bait, luring players into attacking it. The dark shadow, on the other hand, would ambush the healers from behind. As the night rabbit was occupying everyone else, there was no way to save the healer. In the end, everyone died. Inside the Deathly Forest, if players did not deal with this fellow, the result would be a party wipe. With the increased movement speed from Wind Blade, Shifeng quickly caught up to the dark shadow. Shifeng waved out 3 sword slashes, sealing the dark shadow's path of advance. The black shadow knew that it could not escape. It immediately turned around, unsheathing a pair of knives to block Shifeng's attack. Dang, dang, dang. With the abyssal blade, Shifeng's strength was frighteningly high. His attacks caused the Dark Shadow to take 3 steps back, and each step it retreated would be followed by the damage that was over -10. In the end, the Dark Shadow revealed its figure under the moonlight. Night Ranger, Special Elite. Level 2. HP 1458-1500. Seeing the Night Ranger being repelled, Shifeng immediately used Abyssal Bind without giving him a chance. 9 pitch black chains appeared to bind the Night Ranger, preventing him from moving for 3 seconds, and his defense reduced by 100%. Thundering Flash. Chop. Damages of -81, -98, -119, -124 appeared. When the 2 skills landed, a frightening amount of damage appeared, taking away a quarter of the Night Ranger's HP. No matter how capable the Night Ranger was, it could not break free from the binding of the 9 chains. He could only silently take a beating for 3 whole seconds. Shifeng was unrestrained as he sent out sword slash after sword slash, piercing through the vital point on the Night Ranger's chest. By the time the Night Ranger broke free from the bindings, his remaining HP did not exceed 700 points. Wretched human. The Night Ranger was enraged. He brandished his twin blades like a gale, engulfing Shifeng. At this moment, Lonely Snow finally caught up. A charge from him had caused the Night Ranger to enter a fainted state, at the same time breaking the Night Ranger's gale-like blade. Shifeng took the chance to slash at the Night Ranger's neck. Lonely Snow also brandished his large axe at the Night Ranger. By the time the Night Ranger had awoken, he only had a remnant of his HP left. The Night Ranger abruptly hacked his twin blades towards Lonely Snow, sending him flying backward and dealing 64 damage. The Night Ranger turned his head to stare at Shifeng, once more brandishing his twin blades and slashing horizontally towards Shifeng's neck. Dang! Shifeng used parry with his sword. Without giving the Night Ranger any chances to retaliate, Shifeng lifted up the Ranger and tossed him back. Then, Shifeng followed up with a couple of sword strikes, finishing off the Night Ranger. Shifeng conveniently picked up the 2 items that dropped, then immediately ran towards Cola's location to provide help. Laying by the side, Lonely Snow became dumbfounded after seeing Shifeng's agile skills. His heart filled with shock, Lonely Snow had even forgotten to follow Shifeng to support. There was such a way even to kill monsters. Chapter 26 Miraculous Technique. By the time Shifeng returned to the party, the Elite Night Rabbit only had 1/3 of its HP remaining. Everyone had coordinated properly. Cola tanked in the front alone, while the others vigorously dealt damage. However, to control aggro, Blackie did not madly deal damage. Instead, he used Evil Whip to pin down the Night Rabbit, giving Cola some breathing space. Cola's performance was also very good. He steadily tanked the monster, and he also had good control over aggro. Cola was not at the level of a novice, but there was still a long road ahead before he became an expert. Cola, don't always try to block with your shield. It isn't a must to block an attack like the other virtual reality games. You can also dodge to avoid an attack. That way, you could reduce the stress on the healer. For everyone else, focus your attacks on the target. Don't just randomly attack, aim your attacks at the wild rabbit's claws or other weak points. That way, you can reduce a lot of burden on the MT. Shifeng did not directly go up to help Cola, but instead, he taught everyone how to battle against monsters. If everyone battled while regarding God's domain as a traditional game, the results would be disastrous. This was because the healing given out was usually far from being able to keep up with the damage received. Some parties would bring an extra healer. However, this would result in the damage being insufficient. The result was still a party wipe. Players only slowly got used to the combat style in God's domain several months after the game opened. The players then would no longer be as cute and simple as they were now. Shifeng wanted to cultivate everyone to build a foundation for his future workshop. So naturally, he needed to let these people learn the combat styles of God's domain earlier. Everyone thought Shifeng was also a noob, so they held slight dissatisfaction within their hearts. The expert did not say anything, so why was a noob like him giving out commands? However, Shifeng's words made sense, so they still consciously did as Shifeng said. Cola had also started to change his battle style. He was no longer using his shield to block the attacks rigidly. Instead, he retreated a step back when the wild rabbit launched its attack, taking the chance to avoid it. Although Cola still needed to use his shield to block most of the time, it had still greatly reduced the burden on the healer. Such a change allowed killing the Night Rabbit to become even easier. The few level 1 noobs were also slightly surprised. There was some change in their opinions towards Shifeng. Shifeng was not as unbearable as they had imagined him to be. Shifeng only smiled at this situation. He did not mind their thoughts at all. Shifeng only felt that Cola was quite good after seeing his performance. Although Cola was a first-rate expert 10 years later, he currently was still far from that point. If it were an expert MT, they would not retreat, but choose to dodge the attack without even moving. Such a decision was because if the MT moved, the monster would move as well. This situation would cause trouble for long-range damage dealers, which would result in the loss of a lot of damage. However, such a technique required a bounty of experience in battle and a body with dexterous reactions. Cola still needed a lot of training. The Elite Night Rabbit fell within a moment. It dropped a skill book for Berserkers, Whirlwind Slash. It also dropped 3 coppers. Everyone could not help but be amazed by the drop rate of Hell Mode. A skill book dropped just after they killed an elite monster. If they killed over 10 elite monsters, then wouldn't they be able to obtain over 10 skill books? It should be known that skill books were extremely rare, and even a common skill could sell for 1 silver. Shifeng naturally knew of their thoughts. However, not even hell mode had that high of a drop rate. It was only 3 to 4 times that of hard mode. Afterward, Shifeng passed Whirlwind Slash to the stupefied Lonely Snow, then he passed a level 1 bronze defensive plate armor to Cola. The Night Ranger dropped the armor. With these items, the party's strength slightly increased. Cola's mouth could not close after receiving the defensive plate armor. He hurriedly thanked Shifeng for it. With this bronze plate armor, not only had Cola's defense increased by 14 points, but his HP had also become 350 points. Aside from Shifeng and Blackie, everyone else on the scene was filled with envy. Bronze equipment was the identification of an expert. Outside the dungeon, it was impossible to obtain a piece of bronze equipment, even if you begged for it. And this piece of equipment was obtained by Shifeng alone. Yet, Shifeng gave it to Cola without hesitation. Everyone's opinion towards Shifeng changed quite a bit. They felt such a party leader was not bad at all. Shifeng was unlike the other party leaders who would prioritize themselves when equipment dropped. As for bronze equipment, forget giving it away to a temporary party member, they would definitely keep it for themselves. Afterward, everyone followed Shifeng as they advanced. Although the dark and gloomy forest was scary, everyone was no longer as nervous as they were before going through a stimulating fight. From time to time, 1 or 2 patrolling elite night rabbits would appear in front of them, and they would also respond to it quickly. When there were 2 night rabbits, Cola would tank one of them, while Shifeng and Lonely Snow would rush over and kill the other. As for the ranged players, they would prioritize attacking the night rabbit in front of Shifeng. The night rabbit's 700 HP would be gone quickly under the fierce bombardment. Afterward, the party supported Cola and finished off the other night rabbit. Within moments, 2 night rabbits were no more. With this process, a skill book, Restore meant for healers also dropped. The skill had a 2-second cast time. When learned by oracles, the skill could instantly restore 37 HP. It was far better than Life Prayer. It did not share the same cooldown as Life Prayer, so the two could be used in coordination to negate the damage caused by the elite night rabbits completely. Drowsy Sloth continuously thanked Shifeng and the other party members for letting him learn the skill book. Restore was an extremely important skill for conquering dungeons. If it were to be sold outside, it could go for at least 2 or 3 silver coins. Don't mind it. Skill books are meant to be used. Let's continue onward. Shifeng smiled as he answered. Aside from AoE attack skill books, healer class skill books were the most expensive and rare. However, the Deathly Forest was a dungeon meant to let players build up their foundation in God's domain. In Hell mode, the drop rate for basic healing skills was very high. In Shifeng's previous life, he had obtained 4 healing skill books just after entering Hell mode of the Deathly Forest once. It was not considered valuable. After more than an hour, Shifeng's party arrived at a flat grassland. They had finally met the first boss of the dungeon. Willy, Chieftain rank, level 3, HP 6000. Willy was a ferocious night rabbit. Its height was as tall as 2 people, and sharp steel claws decorated its paws. These claws loved creating a feast of fresh blood, and those caught by it would be ripped to shreds, turned into a river of blood. It was unknown how many players had died a gruesome death under these claws. A short distance away from Willy, there were 7 elite night rabbits on guard. These 7 rabbits were very close to each other. As long as one of them was attacked, the other wild rabbits would rush over as well. There was also a great possibility of attracting the boss. Even if it were Shifeng, he would not be able to face off against 7 night rabbits, not to mention including a boss. However, if they did not finish off the 7 night rabbits, there was no way for them to attack the boss. Brother Feng, what should we do now? This place has too many night rabbits. The game isn't giving us any chances. Blackie was very anxious. Although the boss was in front of them, the system had dealt them such a hand. This difficulty was just too great. No wonder it was a hell mode dungeon. It was impossible to pass through without absolute strength. The system setting also angered everyone. Who could fend off 7 elite night rabbits? Even a level 5 guardian knight would not be able to do it. You all wait for me behind that rock. Cola, get ready to receive the monster. Everyone else is not allowed to attack without my command. Shifeng pointed towards a large rock nearby. Shifeng naturally knew that there were 7 elite night rabbits here. Everyone abided by Shifeng's command without question. All the monsters they had killed on the way here relied on Shifeng's commands for success. They killed quite a lot of night rabbits, and everyone had obtained 1 or 2 pieces of bronze equipment. Blackie even had 5 pieces of bronze equipment. Their party's strength has definitely surpassed the other elite parties. The credit for such an achievement belonged to Shifeng's commands. As for Shifeng, he had run to a location that was 40 yards away from the 7 night rabbits. He quietly hid within the bushes, observing the night rabbits' every movement. Everyone understood that Shifeng was trying to lure monsters. However, the 7 night rabbits were too close to each other. Shifeng was a swordsman. He did not possess any long-ranged attacking capabilities, so how could he lure monsters? Time passed bit by bit. Everyone was extremely anxious. If Shifeng accidentally failed, then it would be a party wipe. However, Shifeng was calm. He moved not an inch as he watched the faraway night rabbits. At this moment, a cool breeze blew past. A dead leaf on the trees was sent flying over. Seeing the dead leaf hovering down towards the night rabbit, Shifeng picked up a small stone beside him. Gently, he tossed the stone over. The direction the stone flew to was towards the night rabbit closest to the boss. We're finished. Everyone understood what kind of outcome this would be. It would definitely be a combination of one boss and 7 night rabbits rushing towards them, turning them into blood sacrifices. The moment the stone was about to hit the night rabbit, the dead leaf just happened to have blocked between the stone and the night rabbit. The stone struck the dead leaf, smashing it onto the night rabbit. The night rabbit abruptly turned to look at its surroundings, only discovering a leaf. However, how could a leaf hitting it be so painful? Subsequently, the night rabbit left its unit to observe the surroundings. It looked around aimlessly, not knowing what it was trying to find. It had unknowingly moved over 20 yards away from its unit, and it was still moving further and further away. Too godly. Lonely Snow could not help but exclaim. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. Everyone else had dumbly nodded as well. What kind of accurate judgment and aim was required to hit the dead leaf while hitting the night rabbit, and thereby confusing the night rabbit's hatred, causing it to look for its target blindly? Even calling it as an ultimate skill was not excessive. Was Shifeng really a noob? He couldn't be some gaming god here to make a fool of them, right? Summoner, the rest is up to you. Shifeng walked to the rock's location. He looked at the summoner, clapping the person's shoulders as he spoke, smiling. Chapter 27 Shifeng's Improved Party. Hearing Shifeng's comment, the summoner, Gluttonous Mouse suddenly panicked. He did not understand what Shifeng wanted him to do. If he had performed badly and was kicked from the party as a result, he would regret it until he died. It was hard to find a good party during this time, not to mention a party with an expert leading it. It was impossible to join such a party, even if you begged. Relax, I won't let you do anything dangerous. You just have to summon out a flame sprite and follow my instructions. You don't have to do anything else, Shifeng said with a smile, trying to ease the nerves of Gluttonous Mouse a little. Currently, summoners were not strong, mainly due to the incapability of their skills. A summoner's method of attack mainly relied on their summoned creatures, whereas their normal attack was the low-damage magic bullet. However, a summoner with awesome skills could become a one-man army. It was especially true for summoners who could call out powerful elemental creatures. They could kill elite monsters as if they were just playing around. Party leader, rest assured, I'll definitely do it. Gluttonous Mouse loudly said, his tone filled with respect. He was like a student who had met his teacher. Everyone else, distance yourselves from that rock, 20 yards away from it would be the best. Pay attention not to lure the other monsters. Shifeng turned around and said to the other party members. Yes, party leader. The other party members loudly replied. Their current attitudes were completely different from before. Shifeng was slightly shocked by everyone's performance. Why was each and every one of them so obedient all of a sudden? However, Shifeng did not know that the single stone he threw just now had completely shocked every one of them. They were filled with admiration towards Shifeng's stone-throwing technique. Such skill and accuracy were definitely not something a normal person could do. Professional players might not even be able to do so. Worshipping the strong was a common sight within a game. These level 1 noobs were no exception. At this moment, the gaze everyone used to look at Shifeng was completely different. Before, they merely felt that Shifeng was a good commander. Now, however, Shifeng was a strong person they worshipped. They had faintly grown a sense of reverence for Shifeng. Standing to the side, Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, proudly saying, how is it? Following Brother Feng isn't bad, right? Lonely Snow silently nodded his head, rejoicing for the decision he made to follow after Shifeng. Shifeng was definitely a beta tester expert. Without sufficient experience and practice, such techniques were impossible to accomplish. Only a beta tester could possibly do it. Ha ha ha. What do you plan to do in the future? Blackie suddenly asked. He started to hatch ideas towards Lonely Snow. Blackie wanted to poach Lonely Snow for their workshop, even though the workshop was still non-existent. There was a 100% chance for Cola to join them, but Lonely Snow still did not have any plans to move in such a direction. The future. Lonely Snow had never considered it before. He was but an average player. He did not have any big ambitions, only wanting to earn some cash from playing games. He said honestly, I have never considered it before. I see that your techniques are quite good. Why don't you join us for now? Blackie nonchalantly asked. Really? Lonely Snow had anxiety about his future after Blackie's question. He did not know where he wanted to go. If he could party with an expert, then it could not get any better. Of course. However, we still need to look at your future performance. We don't just simply accept people, Blackie proudly said, pretending to be an expert. Thank you, Brother Black. Lonely Snow happily responded. He never imagined his luck would be so great as to be noticed by an expert. Seeing Lonely Snow agree, Blackie released a sigh of relief. Currently, Blackie was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. He couldn't help out Shifeng much in God's domain, but he could still help out in regards to administration. There wasn't even a shadow of their workshop as of this moment. There was also the debt of 16,000 credits. The workshop's members consisted of only Shifeng and himself. It was definitely the poorest workshop in history. If this was found out by the others, they would definitely turn around and leave. Now, Blackie could only fake being an expert to lure people to join their workshop. At this moment, Shifeng was currently explaining the contents of the operation to the summoner. The operation was to let Gluttonous Mouse lure the remaining 6 night rabbits by controlling his flame sprite. Because the night rabbit that was closest to the boss was no more, luring the other night rabbits would not attract the boss. They could lure the monsters with ease. The flame sprite was extremely weak. Its HP was only a pitiful 15 points, and it would die in a single hit. However, its movement speed was extremely quick. Adding to its very small size, trying to hit it would be a difficult task. Start the operation. Mouse, remember to maintain a distance of 4 yards or above while circling around the rock, Shifeng reminded once more. Gluttonous Mouse nodded his head. Carefully, he controlled the flame sprite to lure the 6 night rabbits. When the sprite entered the 35-yard distance, the nearest elite night rabbit discovered the flame sprite. Suddenly, it turned its body around and rushed towards the flame sprite. The other night rabbits also came rushing along. Seeing the night rabbits taking the bait, Gluttonous Mouse immediately controlled the flame sprite and ran. The 6 night rabbits were in hot pursuit, but their speed could no match for the flame sprite. In a moment, the flame sprite had arrived beneath the large rock. It had lured the 6 night rabbits over and started circling around the large rock. On the other side, Cola had already aggroed the night rabbit that had left its unit. Cola interchanged between blocking and using his new skill, Divine Strike. With the effects of 2 pieces of bronze equipment, a single hit from Divine Strike had caused 26 damage. It was a lot higher compared to the 11 or 12 damage caused by a normal strike. Also, Divine Strike had the added effect of increasing hatred. It became a lot easier to hold aggro. The night rabbit was killed off within a short moment. It dropped 5 coppers. After this night rabbit was handled, only the 6 night rabbits that kept on circling around the large rock remained. I'll lure the night rabbits. Cola, pay attention to pull the monster. Shifeng picked up another small stone, throwing it at the night rabbit that ran at the rear. The night rabbit rubbed its cranium after being struck on it. The rabbit turned around, discovering Shifeng that had thrown the stone. The night rabbit suddenly became enraged. It madly hopped towards Shifeng with its powerful legs. As for the other night rabbits, they were still excitedly chasing after the flame sprite, failing to notice the disappearance of one of their companions. Receive it. Seeing the night rabbit was only 20 yards away from the party, Shifeng commanded. Cola rushed ahead, sending a divine strike towards the night rabbit's head. The night rabbit's target immediately changed, extending its claws towards Cola's cranium. However, Cola had reacted quickly by dodging his body sideways. After avoiding the attack, Cola continued by using punishment. The skill had once more strengthened the night rabbit's hatred to Cola. Everyone, focus fire. Shifeng inwardly applauded after seeing Cola's performance. He had never imagined Cola's ability to learn would be this great. He had already found out about the night rabbit's attack patterns after going through slightly more than 10 battles. No wonder he was the core MT of a first-rate guild, 10 years later. His potential was limitless. The night rabbit in front of Cola had fallen within 20 seconds. It had even dropped a skill book for swordsman, Double Chop. Shifeng immediately learned it without reservations. Double Chop action type. Requires, sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0/300. Rapidly deals damage twice. Every slash of the sword deals 120% plus 15 damage, also increasing bleeding effect by 20%. Duration of 10 seconds. Stacks up to a maximum of 5 times. Cooldown, 8 seconds. This skill book had greatly increased Shifeng's explosive power. As for the problem of getting used to the skill, it was non-existent for Shifeng. After playing for 10 years as a swordsman, the skills belonging to the job were deeply ingrained into Shifeng's bones. As long as Shifeng got a hold of these skills, he would be able to utilize them to their greatest potential. Shifeng had also lured the remaining 5 night rabbits over, one after another. The party had killed the rabbits one by one, and following the death of the final night rabbit, a golden glow appeared around Shifeng's body. He had risen to level 2. At the same time, the 5 night rabbits had contributed to the party a piece of bronze plate armor for guardian knights. The equipment increased Cola's HP to 390 points and his defense to 56. It had also increased Cola's ability to resist against the night rabbit chieftain, Willy. Chapter 28 The Horror of Hell Mode. With the elites that were on guard all dead, only the boss, Willy, remained on the open field. At this moment, Willy was laying on the ground, sleeping. It would scratch its back from time to time, completely unaware of its missing henchman. Everyone, recover for now. I'll explain the method to raid Willy in a moment. Shifeng wanted everyone to ease up first. It would not be easy to face off against Willy. The fight would require a high degree of concentration because a single mistake would cause everyone to be buried together. Hearing Shifeng's command, everyone sat down to recuperate. They ate and drank to recover to their best state. Shifeng's finger waved and shook as he called up his attribute panel. He had recently reached level 2. Because of the Abyssal Blade, the free attribute points he obtained exceeded other players by 2 points. The choices he could make with his points were slightly more than the average player. In the initial period, it was sufficient for the agility of a swordsman to reach 20 points. However, Shifeng increased his to 30 points. There would be a fixed increase in the body's flexibility when agility reached 30 points. Subsequently, Shifeng added the remaining points into strength, making it easier for him to contend with the boss. Shifeng had on him 3 pieces of bronze equipment, a mysterious iron ring, and a magic weapon. Shifeng attributes had basically reached his own requirements. Character, Yifeng Human. Affiliated Kingdom, Star Moon. Title, Might of 8000. Job, Swordsman. Level, 2. HP, 525/120. Attack power, 88. Defense power, 39. Attack speed, 15. Movement speed, 13. Attributes, Strength 32, Agility 30, Endurance 24, Intelligence 13, Vitality 13. With such attributes, Shifeng had more confidence dealing with Willy. Seeing everyone recovered, Shifeng started explaining, Willy has two skills. One of them is Killing Feast. When used, Willy will ignore hatred and randomly attack the nearest players. Blackie and Lonely, you two have to pay attention to your positioning. The other skill is Death Claws. Cola, you have to distance yourself from the boss before this skill is used. Lonely Snow, pay attention to interrupt the boss. I'll remind you when the time comes. Another point to take note of, Willy is very smart, so don't keep on using the same attack pattern. Alright, that's it. If we're ready, then start the battle, Cola. Brother Feng, is there nothing else we have to pay attention to? Blackie walked up to Shifeng's side, whispering. This place was the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Not everyone was an expert, as well. However, Shifeng's explanation was so simple that it made them feel conquering this boss was very easy. However, there were so many elite parties which had died inside normal mode, so how could hell mode be so simple? Party leader, are there no details we need to pay attention to? Everyone was very worried. They all held anticipation in their gazes as they looked towards Shifeng, hoping that he would speak more about the finer details. They were noobs, so there were a lot of things they did not understand. In regards to an expert like Shifeng, the things he felt were common knowledge, were definitely not common to noobs like them. Elites could not be compared to a boss. The other elite parties must have definitely died at the hands of the boss. Although their equipment was better than in elite parties, they were still level 1 noobs. They clearly knew their own worth. You guys worry too much. Relax. When the time comes, I'll tell you what you should do and when you should do it, so don't worry about it. Cola, start the fight and remember to dodge more often. A single healer will not be able to match up to the boss's damage, Shifeng smiled. He felt his party members were quite interesting. They were much more serious about the details than he had thought. In his previous life, Shifeng had entered Hell Mode dungeons countless times as the captain of Shadow. There was also no lack of 100-men dungeons amongst those times. So, how could he not know how to guide a few noobs to beat a small boss? Cola had no choice but to go at it hard. Willy abruptly leapt up the moment Cola entered its detection range. Its mouth salivated when it saw Cola, and its two pairs of steel claws intertwined to produce sparks. Cola had clearly stimulated Willy's heart of massacre. It lifted its steel claws and hastily dashed towards Cola. Start casting heals. All damage dealers prepare to attack Willy's limbs. Shifeng commanded when he saw Willy's menacing appearance. Just when Shifeng finished speaking, Willy had arrived before of Cola. Before Cola could react, its sharp claws had fallen from the sky, slashing at Cola's neck. Pung! Cola instinctively used his shield to block the steel claws, forming 3 brilliant streaks of sparks. There were also 3 claw marks left on the shield. Due to the immense rushing force, Cola was forced to retreat 5 or 6 steps as he stabilized his body. Above his head, a damage of -103 appeared. Before Cola could even attack, Willy once again waved out its steel. This time, Cola was sent flying with his shield, and a damage of -105 points appeared. Only at this moment did the heal land on Cola, recovering 43 HP for him. It was a truly insignificant amount when compared to the damage Cola received. Everyone was shocked. The movement speed and damage of the boss was too horrifying. If Cola did not possess 2 pieces of bronze equipment, or if he did not block the attacks with his shield, he would have simply died from these 2 strikes. Lonely Snow, use charge on Willy. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Shifeng had long since expected such a situation. He quickly instructed Blackie to use a binding skill. Lonely Snow reacted by using a charge to block Willy's next attack and saved Cola's life. However, Lonely Snow's attack had only caused -11 damage to Willy. He became dumbfounded by it. He had added most of his attribute points into strength, and he even had 2 pieces of bronze equipment on him. Yet, he had dealt such a small amount of damage. It should be known that the boss in front of him had 6,000 HP. Blackie also finished chanting from the side, sending out his evil whip. 5 streaks of pitch black thorns suddenly constricted Willy's legs. Shifeng took the chance to circle around to Willy's rear. With the abyssal blade in hand, he used double chop on Willy's neck, causing -66 and -67 damage. His attack also caused a bleeding effect, causing Willy to lose 8 HP every second, lasting for 10 seconds. The high damage immediately caused Willy to switch its hatred to Shifeng. However, Shifeng did not give it any chance. With his 30 agility, Shifeng easily dodged away from the steel claws, appearing 5 yards away from Willy. Ow! 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 Willy furiously bellowed as it rushed at Shifeng. Ranged players start attacking. Cola, come over and hold Willy after you're done recovering. Shifeng systematically retreated while he dodged Willy's claws. However, the others watching Shifeng were shocked to their souls. This was because Willy's claws would graze by Shifeng's cranium every time it attacked, blowing his hair into a dance. Although everyone was shocked, they never stopped attacking. Magic attacks were sent out one after another, whereas Lonely Snow used Whirlwind Slash at Willy's rear. However, not one of those damages had exceeded -20 points. Willy's HP slowly decreased. When it was occasionally struck by Shi Feng, its HP would drop by a segment. Willy's HP had fallen to 90% within a moment. Willy became enraged as it started a mad dance with its claws. It used death claws, greatly increasing its attack speed. Shi Feng was nearly hit by it. Fortunately, however, he had used the abyssal blade to block the attack, only receiving -130 damage from it. At this moment, the Cola rushed up with his full HP. He used a divine strike on Willy's head, followed by a punishment. Willy's hatred only switched to Cola after a series of attacks. The switching of hatred had also interrupted Willy's death claws, returning Willy to its normal state. Seeing Willy change targets, Shi Feng waved out a thundering flash. 3 streaks of thunder passed through Willy's body, dealing -92, -116, -137 damage. At the same time, giving Willy a damage amplification effect, it allowed others to deal 20% more damage to it. The fight with Willy became much easier. Blackie was sending out dark arrows without stopping, each dealing over -50 damage. Whereas the others only managed to deal over -20 damage to Willy. Being given a painful beating, Willy was just about to turn around and attack Shi Feng when Cola used both divine strike and punishment once more. Willy's hatred was quickly pulled back to Cola. When Willy turned back to Cola, Shi Feng used a chop on it. In such a way, Shi Feng and Cola took turns aggroing Willy, causing it unable to attack any players. Willy's HP continuously dropped until it was 30%. Willy entered a berserk state, its body increasing by several sizes. Melee players stay away from the boss. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Healer, heal me. Shi Feng loudly shouted. In its current state, Willy was definitely going to use its big move, Killing Feast. Lonely Snow and Cola immediately distanced themselves from the boss after hearing Shi Feng's command, letting Shi Feng tank the boss by himself. When the two of them had run out of the 10-yard range, Willy disappeared. No one understood what happened. When Willy reappeared, it had already arrived at Shi Feng's back, and its steel claws abruptly descended. Shi Feng had long since been ready for this. He used his sword to block the incoming claws. However, just after blocking this attack, Willy once again disappeared and again appeared behind Shi Feng. Within 2 short seconds, Willy had attacked Shi Feng's back 7 times. Fortunately, Shi Feng's agility had reached 30 points. It was barely enough to match up to Willy's speed. However, every attack Shi Feng blocked would still take away a significant amount of HP from him. The heals he received also continuously recovered his HP. -96, -97, +46, -96, -97, +48, +32, -96, -97, +46. If Shi Feng did not possess 520 HP and blocked every claw that came at him, Shi Feng would have died from Willy's killing feast with 100% certainty. At this moment, Shi Feng's remaining HP did not reach 100 points. Get rid of it, Shi Feng loudly shouted. After using his big move, Willy would enter a weakened state. It was the perfect chance to kill it. Everyone continuously greeted Willy with their attacks, finally shaving off Willy's remaining 30% HP. It dropped 4 items. Just as everyone was about to let loose their breaths, Shi Feng took a look at everyone's current status. The healer, Drowsy Sloth's remaining MP did not reach 20%, and the other mage's MP did not reach 10%. Shi Feng hurriedly said, "Everyone, sit down and recover immediately." Everyone was confused. Didn't the boss just die? Why must they be in such a hurry? However, everyone still listened to Shi Feng's command to sit down and recover. Before they had even sat down and recuperated with food and drinks for 5 seconds, a violent roar entered everyone's ears. The roar had shaken the entire deathly forest, and following it, a black shadow leapt out from within the forest. The black shadow was a gigantic werewolf. The werewolf looked at Willy's corpse, then looked towards Shi Feng and the others. Its pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson red. Just when it wanted to release a roar, Shi Feng dashed towards it with wind blade. Immediately, Shi Feng used Abyssal Bind. 9 chains appeared and bound the werewolf in its mouth, preventing it from making a sound. At this moment, everyone finally saw the werewolf's statistics. It had a whopping 2 bars of HP. Werewolf felt Lord rank. Level 3. HP 12,000. Crap, why is there a Lord boss? Blackie cursed. They had barely rested just after killing a boss, and now there was a Lord in front of them. Lords were a rank higher than chieftains. The game was literally trying to kill them. Everyone remember, absolutely do not let Werewolf felt let out another roar. Shi Feng continuously reminded everyone. However, the others were clearly frightened. Not because of Werewolf Felt's body and HP, but because of that pair of horrifying crimson eyes. They gave off an intimidating feeling to everyone that made it hard to move. Chapter 29 Extraordinary State. In front of the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, the numbers of level 2 players gathering were increasing. There was also an endless stream of players diving down into the dungeon. Because there were a lot of level 2 players, there was quite an amount of players who had set up stalls, pedaling to the side. Good quality level 0 common equipment, don't miss it when you pass by. You can only go down the dungeon with good equipment. Equipment is limited, hurry over and buy. Small HP potions instantly heals 90 HP once. A must-have tool for a battle that is worthy of you. God's domain had been open for over 10 hours now. The players here were all level 2 players. After over 10 hours of battling, they had gathered quite a few items. Many level 2 players had intended to sell the items which they had no use for, switching them for something they could use. Such a situation had caused business to flourish at the Deathly Forest. Although the number of players in front of the Deathly Forest continued to increase, the number of parties entering the dungeon kept on decreasing. Only those parties that were unaware would enter the Deathly Forest. However, after those players had been properly nurtured by the Deathly Forest, they suddenly discovered their previous beliefs to be very naive. Hence, they obediently stood in front of the dungeon. They talked about life with other parties while watching new parties enter the dungeon with a smile. They had also investigated reports of the Deathly Forest together with the experienced parties, mutually improving their strategies to conquer the dungeon. Following wave after wave of players entering and dying out of the dungeon, the Deathly Forest had finally become the sore point of every player in Red Leaf Town. Every player who entered the Deathly Forest only had one impression of the dungeon. It was extremely horrifying. Currently, in the resurrection graveyard of the Deathly Forest, 6 streaks of white light flashed into existence. Following which, 6 figures revealed themselves from within. There is just no way to clear this dungeon. Snow, I think we would be better off grinding monsters or doing quests. Just after reviving, Zhao Yueru stamped her delicate feet, her chest heaving up and down. The cuteness of her enraged, yet delicate appearance instantly attracted the attention of a crowd of male players. Gentle Snow shook her head, saying in contemplation, our gains inside the Deathly Forest are relatively good, so we can't just easily give up. But the forest inside the Deathly Forest is too large. Adding in the great number of small paths, we would easily become lost without a map. However, I believe that amongst the numerous pathways, there must be a few that lead to the boss's location. The other paths are only there as a trap to confuse us. That is why we are always being ambushed by the night rabbits. The more we fight, the more night rabbits will come. For now, let's investigate for some information and see if we can complete a map for the Deathly Forest. Everyone felt that Gentle Snow's speculation made sense, especially about the part where they attack the night rabbits. Occasionally, a chilling arrow aimed at the cleric, Xiao Yueye, would appear from within the forest. If it wasn't for Xiao Yueye's skill at dodging, they would have long since party wiped. Also, the deeper they went into the forest, the more numerous the night rabbits became. In the end, the night rabbits became too overwhelming in numbers. They were unable to shoulder all of the rabbits, which resulted in their return through death. If they could find the correct path, they might have already cleared the dungeon by now. Zhao Yueru could only nod her head in agreement. The party's leader was, in fact, Gentle Snow, and Gentle Snow's speculations were always very accurate. Zhao Yueru could not help but believe in her. Going with the suggestion, Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru nonchalantly shouted a few times, stating that they wanted to trade information about the Deathly Forest. It couldn't be denied, the striking effect created by 2 great beauties calling out. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the Deathly Forest started to boil as players rushed over, one after another. Every one of them wanted to be the first in position. Too many of the male players, this was a great chance for them to talk to a goddess. Who knew, if the goddess had looked upon them they might be able to live a blessed life in the future. Meanwhile, inside the hell mode of the Deathly Forest, the sky within the dungeon had already darkened. Thousands of birds soared to the skies, leaving the forest in a deadly silence. Werewolf Felt was not any common monster. It was a very famous werewolf. In the past, it massacred countless in Red Leaf Town, nearly turning Red Leaf Town into a town of death. In a fit of rage, the Star Moon Kingdom had sent out its army to surround Felt. In the end, after being heavily wounded by the great swordmaster, Hilton, Felt had escaped into the Deathly Forest to treat its wounds. It was the reason why the dungeon of the Deathly Forest existed. In Hell mode, Felt had 3 absolute skills. The first one was Death Stare. Enemies who Felt stared at would have their attack speed and movement speed greatly reduced. If one had a weak willpower, they might not even be able to move. Presently, only Shi Feng had 30 points in agility. After he had activated the 3 hidden basic skills he possessed, he gained a certain amount of resistance towards the Death Stare. As for the other people, their reactions would become very sluggish. That was why Shi Feng remained the one to keep Werewolf Felt in check, whereas Drowsy Sloth continuously healed Shi Feng. However, Drowsy Sloth's casting speed had slowed by half. As for the melee players, they were no help whatsoever. However, it was not because they did not want to help, but it was because they had no way of helping at all. Werewolf Felt's attack speed was just too fast. It was to the degree where they couldn't react to its attacks. It was as if they were facing off against an expert that came straight out from a wuxia novel. Normal people had no chance to interfere whatsoever. They would only be creating more trouble if they had rushed up to the battle. So, it was still better to just watch from the side. Currently, only the ranged mages dealt damage. However, the damage caused was just too low. Even Blackie's dark arrows were only dealing -24 damage each. Lonely, interrupt the roar. Seeing Felt abruptly inhaling, Shi Feng immediately shouted. Lonely Snow had long since prepared for this moment. Immediately, he went forward and used charge, causing Felt to enter a 1-second fainted state. Then, he quickly retreated. Shi Feng took the chance to use Thundering Flash, Double Chop, and Chop. One attack after another landed on Felt's chest. Before Felt could even regain its breath, it had spat out a mouthful of blood. Shi Feng had caused a terrifying -500 damage to it. Within an instant, Felt's HP had fallen to 78%. Everyone watching became dumbfounded. Regarding Shi Feng's powerful actions, they only had one word to say: amazing. They were even more impressed by Shi Feng's eyesight. He had actually discovered such a weakness on Felt's body. Now, everyone was further reassured that Shi Feng was not as simple as he seemed. However, Shi Feng did not display any great excitement. Although they had interrupted Hell's Roar and avoided a party wipe, this would create a reverse effect. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Werewolf Felt's condition became much more pleasant. It spun its head around and immediately slashed its sharp claws at Shi Feng. The slashing speed of Felt's claws was even a notch quicker than before, filling the sky with the afterimages of its claws. However, Shi Feng was not a weakling either. Strength, agility, and endurance, Shi Feng activated the hidden basic skills of all three of these attributes. With these skills activated, it meant that Shi Feng's constitution was no longer that of an average player, but an extraordinary one. Shi Feng's greatest asset in coming into the deathly forest was this extraordinary state which he could activate at any given moment. With it, he could do things that normal players couldn't. Under a sky filled with after images of claws, Shi Feng could still remain safe and sound. It was as if Shi Feng was dancing under the after images. Occasionally, Shi Feng used his sword to fend off the attacks which he could not avoid. This was the power of being under an extraordinary condition. His five senses became extremely sensitive, and his brain's processing abilities became exceptionally focused. Shi Feng could utilize his body to its greatest potential. If it was an average player, however, they would be unable to carry out such feats. It was both mentally and physically taxing to the extraordinary condition. If Shi Feng had not become accustomed to it before, he would only be able to maintain such a state for a few seconds. Claws and sword intertwined, creating countless dazzling sparks. Both sides had their HP continuously falling. Fortunately, Shi Feng was able to survive the exchange with Drowsy Sloth's timely heals. Afterward, under Shi Feng's command, Lonely Snow would occasionally interrupt the Hell's Roar, while Cola would hold back Felt whenever Shi Feng was in danger, and Blackie would use Evil Whip to contain Felt's movements. In such a way, Werewolf Felt's HP continuously decreased, 70%. 60%. 30%. Everyone stand in a straight line facing the boss. Quickly. Shi Feng hurriedly shouted when he saw Werewolf Felt's HP nearing 30%. Werewolf Felt would become the most frightening when its HP decreased to 30%. During this time, it was impossible to interrupt the Hell's Roar. They could only take it head on. No one had any hesitation, they knew that the boss was about to go berserk. They immediately took action, forming a straight line against Werewolf Felt, while also maintaining a 30-yard distance away from it. The moment Werewolf Felt's HP reached 30%, its fur started changing colors. Within a moment, its fur had become snow white, and 2 streams of blood leaked from its eyes. Its chest also started to quickly expand, as if it was a swelled-up frog. Shi Feng immediately activated Gravity Liberation, quickly arriving in front of everyone else. Cola, use Protection Blessing on me. Shi Feng loudly shouted. Protection Blessing was able to reduce the damage taken by a party member by 50% for a duration of 6 seconds. It was a life-saving skill with a 5-minute cooldown, and right now was the perfect moment to use it. Protection Blessing of Guardian Knights and Shield Wall of Shield Warriors. These 2 skills had a high drop rate inside the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Before, the reason why Shi Feng had wasted time on clearing out some unnecessary night rabbits was all to obtain this skill, Protection Blessing. Chapter 30 Crimson Blade. Cola had long since been ready for this moment. The instant Shi Feng let out the command, his mouth began chanting divine texts. Streaks of golden divine texts rushed at Shi Feng. Protection Blessing. Suddenly, Shi Feng was surrounded by countless golden divine texts, giving off a dazzling golden glow. At the same time, Drowsy Sloth, at the rear of the line, continuously cast Recover and Life Prayer, pulling Shi Feng's HP back up to full and returning him to his best condition. Prepare for a battering attack. Absolutely do not leave from my back. Seeing Werewolf Felt's line of sight shifting towards them, Shi Feng held the abyssal blade across his chest as he commanded. Hearing Shi Feng's words, everyone started to tense up. Their hearts were not courageous, to begin with. Now, their hearts started to madly beat. They were being covered in a cold sweat even before Werewolf Felt used its skill. Suddenly, Werewolf Felt moved. Its expanded chest started moving upwards, moving past its throat into its mouth. Within an instant, everyone aside from Shi Feng felt their hearts stop beating. It was as if the world had turned gray and silent. The soaring birds in the sky had also turned motionless. Everyone could clearly see the multitude of gray-colored waves being emitted from Werewolf Felt's body. Streak after streak, it continuously expanded. The dark gray ripples quickly arrived in front of everyone. However, they could not move even a muscle. It was not because they did not wish to move, but because their bodies could not keep up with the speed of their thoughts. Everyone could feel that time was moving by at an exceptionally slow pace. However, everyone understood that although the movement of time appeared slow, in reality, it was moving at the pinnacle of speed. Just like absolute experts crossing swords, the moment the exchange happened, time would move exceptionally slowly. At this moment, only Shi Feng slightly moved. Phantom kill. The instant the dark gray ripples arrived in front of Shi Feng, his doppelganger had blocked in front of him. At the same time, the doppelganger used parry. Subsequently, the gray ripples made contact with the doppelganger. However, they were blocked by the doppelganger's parry, whereas the doppelganger himself retreated a step back. He only stabilized his body after colliding with Shifeng. Just after the doppelganger stabilized himself, another wave of ripples came smashing. The ripples passed through the doppelganger's body this time, causing his HP to instantly decrease by 300 points. Behind him, Shifeng had also received -30 damage, while the others behind Shifeng received -20 damage. However, the ripples did not stop with just one wave. When the third wave of ripples passed through the doppelganger, his body had instantly disintegrated. A damage of -100 points also appeared above Shifeng's head. Subsequently, wave after wave of dark gray ripples followed. 100, -100, -100, -100. Shifeng's HP fell time and time again until only 90 points remained. When the final wave of ripples was about to get rid of Shifeng, he used parry. Hong. Shifeng retreated a big step backward. However, he did not receive any damage. The people behind him were also unharmed. However, their HP after going through several waves of attacks did not exceed 50%. At this moment, Drowsy Sloth's recover had only landed on Shifeng's body, pulling Shifeng's HP back to 140. Following which he used life payment, recovering 130 HP for Shifeng. Within a moment, Shifeng's HP had returned to over 50%. This roar really is powerful. I even thought we were finished. Blackie wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead. If Shifeng had not blocked in front of them, they would all be goners by now. When he thought back to how Shifeng nearly died, Blackie's heart started beating rapidly, reaching 180 beats per minute. If Shifeng died, then they would die as well. There was nobody else in the party who could pin down Werewolf Felt for a long period of time. At this moment, everyone looked at Shifeng as if they were looking at a monster. Never would they have imagined that Shifeng would ingeniously use his doppelganger to block two of those onslaughts. He had also used parry on the final attack. The way Shifeng had calculated both damage and HP was absolutely brilliant. Such a technique definitely belonged to the realm of gods. Stop daydreaming, all of you. Quickly attack the boss, it's in a weakened state right now. Shifeng only shrugged his shoulders at his party's reaction. Such a technique could be done by many experts in a few more years. However, Shifeng had yet to relax. The thing he had to pay attention to the most right now was the boss. Only he knew how hard it was to deal with Werewolf Felt. Wind Blade. With gravity liberation activated, Shifeng instantly arrived in front of Felt. He tightly gripped the abyssal blade, continuously sending attacks towards Felt's chest. Thundering Flash. Double Chop. Chop. Damage that exceeded -100 appeared above Werewolf Felt's head, one after another. The other party members were also able to deal damage of over -20 with each attack. Very quickly, they had reduced Werewolf Felt's HP down to 15%. When they saw that Felt was about to die, everyone revealed smiles of excitement. Don't be careless. Blackie, use your evil whip. Lonely Snow, prepare to interrupt with charge. Shifeng commanded as he dodged Werewolf Felt's attack. Being told what to do in such a way, everyone's hearts suddenly constricted. A death stare and a hell's roar was already unimaginably terrifying. If it was any other party here, they would have long since revived back at the graveyard. Could Werewolf Felt actually have another powerful skill? How horrifying was this hell mode? Shifeng constantly paid attention to Werewolf Felt's HP. Just when Felt's HP fell down to 10%, its third big move finally came. Death Berserk. This move would increase Werewolf Felt's attack speed by 100%, its movement speed by 40%, and its attack power by 100% until it died. It was precisely this move that had caused countless elite parties to curse out in madness. After activating Death Berserk, Werewolf Felt's fur started turning red. In a moment, it had become blood red in color. Adding in its crimson red eyes and sharp fangs, Felt looked remarkably like a blood fiend. Its terrifying appearance had caused everyone to inadvertently retreat a step backward. They could clearly feel the air of danger given off by Felt. Shifeng used another double chop, stacking the bleeding effect to 5 layers. Afterward, he spun around and ran. After activating Death Berserk, there was no one under level 5 who was able to block Felt. That included Shifeng, even if he had a magic weapon. The only method was to kite it and slowly grinding Felt to death. The moment Shifeng had escaped the 10-yard distance, Felt's thick thighs suddenly doubled in size. One of its legs abruptly stomped the ground, sending it flying like an arrow, rushing towards Shifeng. Shifeng was about to arrive at the location of the large rock, but behind him, Felt's speed was just too fast. He definitely could not make it. Shifeng abruptly made a 90-degree sharp turn. Hong. Without making any turns, Werewolf Felt smashed straight into the large rock blocking its path, turning it into rubble. Fragmented rocks the size of a person's head were sent flying more than 10 yards away. Seeing such horrifying strength, even a fierce man such as Kola had his heart trembling. If he were struck by those claws, then he would definitely become meat paste. At this moment, Shifeng had already distanced himself over 20 yards from Felt. Meanwhile, the attacks from the mages never stopped. They continuously ground away Felt's HP. Shifeng's plan to kite Felt was a success. Every time Werewolf Felt was about to catch up, Lonely Snow would charge at it. He then followed it up with a bone crusher, greatly reducing Felt's speed. Afterward, he pulled away from Felt once more. When Lonely Snow's skills were on cooldown, Blackie would use Evil Whip to constrict Felt once more. The skills of the two of them had a quick cooldown. With Shifeng's occasional abyssal bind, they had formed a perfect cycle to toy with Werewolf felt without pause. 7%, 6%, 5%, 3%. Finally, when Felt only had 1% HP remaining, Shifeng abruptly turned around. Wind blade, thundering flash, chop, double chop. Shifeng's single sword slashed at Werewolf Felt's chest, taking away its final 1% HP. System: your party is the first to clear a Hell Mode dungeon. Rewards increased by 100%, loot increased by 100%. System: cleared Hell Mode of Deathly Forest. Rewarding 8,000 express. At this moment, Werewolf Felt exploded, dropping out over 10 items. And amongst them, there was one that made Shifeng's eyes shine. Crimson Blade. It was a sword that had the color of fresh blood. It gave off a dull red glow, and there was also faint drops of red liquid dripping off the edges of the blade. The entire sword revealed a dense killing aura. Shifeng never imagined that the item with an abysmal drop rate would actually appear in front of him.